You've been studying and working with obesity and patients with obesity
Thank you.
For a long time. If you had to convince me that obesity is a disease, could you list a few things that back up your claim?
So nobody chooses to develop obesity. There are multiple causes and not one person gets there by the same route. But when you've developed obesity, your biology changes. Your hormones that come from your gastrointestinal tract and tell your brain that you've eaten, they change. When we do brain imaging studies using specialized imaging, the way the brain of the person with obesity responds to food completely changes, and the connections in the brain. And then when a person tries to lose weight, their body does everything possible to make them put the weight back on. Mm-hmm. And this is because if you think about evolution, why would we stop eating? All of our systems in our body are set up to make us eat when food is available, because otherwise we would have died out during starvation. So when a person loses weight, and everybody who tries to lose weight sort of goes through this cycle. So they do what you were saying, they starve themselves, they go on a diet of some description. They're really happy because they've lost 10, 15 kilos. But then despite their best efforts, they put the weight back on. And that's biology. As soon as you go on a diet, all of your hormones change to make you hungry, to drive you to eat more. Plus also your energy expenditure goes down. So your body does absolutely everything to take your weight up to the highest weight that you've ever been. So what happens is people lose weight, then they go higher, but they actually overshoot and end up higher still. And that we understand the science that drives that. It's very clear. It's not willpower. I don't have better willpower than you. I have different biology.
I read this very interesting study which actually pointed out what you're saying, that you have a different biology in this environment of overconsumption or alluring advertisements for Biscoff cheesecake. I can't resist it, but you can.
Yes.
And that really did impact me a lot on a personal level. So if I walk up to somebody and I say, I think I might have a disease, I think I might be a person with obesity, they're actually going to laugh and say, oh, it's all in your mind. You've been, reading too much of news, or you just want a shortcut way to lose weight. But I believe I would qualify for that, having been, 88 kilos and gone down to 52 kilos and gone up to 64 kilos. So I believe I would qualify for that. So a lot of the way in which we would classify somebody with obesity as a dysfunctional disease is based on the appearance. Are there better mechanisms of diagnosing obesity as a harmful disease?
So you've already alluded to the fact that the way we diagnose obesity is flawed a little bit. So we start off with body mass index. And that's great if you're looking at a population level, but at the level of the individual, it doesn't really tell me anything about your risk. So obesity is a disease of excess body fat that then can impair health. So the first thing to do is see, where is your excess fat and how is it impacting on your health? So that's why measuring waist circumference or waist to hip circumference is also important. But then what a physician would do is then look at all the areas of your health where obesity might impact on it. So, for example, cardiovascular system, your liver, your joints, but also thinking more broadly, so your psychological and emotional health are also impacted. So obesity can cause over 200 complications. So when a physician sees somebody with obesity, they're looking to see how the excess adipose tissue is impacting on their health. Because in some people it might not be at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between obesity being a risk factor and a person having obesity, the disease. When it's impairing your health, then it's a disease in its own right. Yeah. Whereas when it's not doing that, then it's a risk factor for other diseases.
Yeah. I've just, so that we have a fair argument here, I have been reading up on the counter view to this. And there is one article I came across by an epidemiologist at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, Jeffrey Kabat. And he believes that the best medicine to treat obesity is culture and lifestyle and the environment. It's all about willpower, according to him. And it's all about us as human beings using our feet and our forks in the right way and so on. And that when you start talking too much about obesity as a disease, you start focusing more on medical treatments, clinical treatments, and you're going to take away from the preventive aspects of obesity. Would you agree with that?
I completely disagree. So prevention is really critical for obesity. Any child born today doesn't need to develop obesity, and that's prevention. And we can do a huge amount in our environment with our food systems, exercise, built environments to prevent. But for the people that already have the disease of obesity, there's more than 1 billion people globally. Those people deserve to be diagnosed and access to holistic treatment. So including advice on lifestyle, access to obesity management medications if they need it, or even access to metabolic bariatric surgery. So prevention doesn't mean that you don't do treatment, and just because we say obesity is a disease doesn't mean that we wouldn't prevent it. In fact, I think it would make it sort of more important.
Do you think sometimes the mental health aspect of obesity needs to also be worked alongside going to, your endocrinologist or your bariatric surgeon?
Yes, but also because people living with obesity experience a lot of stigma. Stigma from society, because people think, well, why can't you just eat less, move more? And also they stigmatize themselves. They blame themselves. That voice in their head saying, if only you tried a bit harder, if only you hadn't eaten that Biscoff cheesecake. So the psychological, being kind to yourself, and what we call food noise is really important to address. It's not just thinking about what you're eating, your physical activity. It's also thinking about your sort of psychological well-being, stress, sleep, and other aspects of our life that we just tend to forget.
Yeah. In fact, I have this ongoing argument with my family where I keep telling them, can we not revolve everything around food?
The problem is so cultural.
It's so deep-seated, There are people who would get offended because I will carry my own food with me. And I keep telling them, this is not food, it's fuel.
Yeah.
Stop taking it socially when I'm just trying to, look after myself biologically. And do you want me to be ill then? But it is so hard to break. Do you think it'll ever get broken?
I think it will. And I think we're starting to see it, probably not in India, but the awareness that actually obesity impacts on your health and what you eat is really important. So there's a lot of media attention, in particular in the UK, to do with ultra-processed food and other types of food stuff. And people are really looking at going back to more sort of minimally processed foods and really thinking about what they're putting in their bodies and how much. And one of the really useful ways is actually if you put how much exercise you need to do for consuming something, for example. So one slice of pizza, you need to walk for 1 hour and 10 minutes. And I think that helps people put it into context, because often just saying that something's 300 calories doesn't mean anything.
No, it doesn't.
But it's also the quality of the food that you're eating that's important, rather than just...
Yeah, no, I've been doing this new thing where I'm breaking up. Earlier I used to make my diet based on what I would eat. Now it's based on macronutrients. So then I'm not constantly visualizing, my salad and then thinking about it, and then I get hungry and then I'll end up eating a lot more. And as you said, I don't blame myself so much anymore.